Hello and welcome to the Extended Greg YouTube channel. I'm Greg, and today we're going to be taking a look at Cloud-init images on Proxmox. It's a great way to get up and running quickly using pre-configured images specifically for virtualization. Before we get into it, if you be sure to like this video, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. But stay tuned, we're about to get extended. So let's get right into it. Okay, so what we have here is Proxmox. This is a standard virtualization environment. I have it running on a pretty much a multi-core PC. It's got 32 threads in this particular case. We built it in a previous video, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. It's very small and lightweight and has quite a bit of horsepower. But today we're going to be covering exactly what we can do with it. So one of the things that's nice about Proxmox is not only can you just load your own images and install them as normal, but there's a lot of distributions that have pre-built images available to be able to just import them. And it makes it really easy to be able to actually go through and use some of the things, some of the distributions very quickly to be able to get your project up and running without having to go through the installation procedure to actually install it to a hard drive or anything else like that. So first, let's kind of cover how to get there. We're going to use Alpine Linux as an example and show some of those cloud images. So I'm here on the regular download page for Alpine Linux, and right up here it says download or launch cloud images. And the nice thing is cloud images themselves are very portable and are used in AWS, in Azure, in pretty much all of the, I would say, cloud-hosted virtualization providers. So it's really very simple to be able to port it over to be able to use it for them, because it's all based on Cloud-init. And these images, as well as you could build it yourself, but Cloud-init is actually just a package that is standardized across multiple distributions. And what it allows you to do is to be able to bring in things like a username, password, SSH key, IP configuration, things like that, to be able to get your machine up and running from an image that's already pre-configured. So in this particular case, we're going to take a look at Alpine just because it's pretty lightweight, pretty easy to install. And the others are very similar as well. But we're going to go through here. We're going to look at the generic, which are in alpha for our cloud provider. We're going to look at the latest release that's offered, which is 3.21.2. I'll zoom in actually a little bit. Our architecture in this particular case is x86-64. We could run AArch64 as well, but the performance is not quite there. It is virtualized and emulated. So it's, you know, unless there's a specific case that you need it, and if you're doing things for like Raspberry Pi and want to be able to cross-compile but using a virtual machine, then you would do that. But in this particular case, we're only going to stick to the x86-64 since that's the architecture I have for Proxmox. And we're going to keep it to that, and we see that there's one effectively entry here with a bunch of little rows available. So how do we choose between them? If we actually look at it, we have the x86-64. Okay, that's pretty much what we specified. But then there's BIOS and UEFI. So we're going to choose UEFI in this case, but if we did BIOS, we would choose cBIOS, you know, and if we did UEFI, we would do the option according to that. So, and there's two types of things. So Alpine Linux also offers Tiny, which is kind of like a Cloud-init Lite. We're not going to use that today, but it does also work very well. So we're going to do Cloud-init VM instead of Metal. Metal is a bare metal server. And we'll do BIOS in this particular case. So we'll go ahead and download this image. And actually we'll do, UEFI. I already pre-downloaded this. Cloud-init VM, there we go, right here. So we're going to pre-download this, you know, just use it normally. And pretty much when we go into here, we would click over into which storage we want to place it in. And I'm going to zoom in here just so you have a chance of actually seeing this. And we see I have my storage down here, which is local BTRFS. And looking up at the top, we see we have import as an option. Now, if you configure this yourself or it's a second drive or something like that, it is something where you may not have the actual import enabled as part of that. That's out of scope of this video. We'll do a video at some other point on setting that up. But if it is your default drive, or if you only have one drive, generally you're going to have it automatically configured for it. So we have the option to download it from a URL or upload. In fact, I'll show you. My cat is joining me on my desk. I'll show you this. There's a cat there. You want to say hello? Ooh. Say hello, kitty. See if she can hang out on my lap for this. So we're gonna scroll down and just choose our UEFI Cloud-init VM. We can right-click, copy link address, and then go back into Proxmox, do download from URL, paste the URL, query the URL. It will give us all of the information, and we notice here that it says it is UEFI Cloud-init. Let's do here, and it's .qcow2. So .qcow2 is the image container that we're generally going to use. It is also compatible with RAW and other formats as well, but I'll show you this really quick. And all we would do is just hit download. And pretty much, I already have it there, so it's giving an error. Just because that's what's right here already. So we're going to go through and let's actually create a VM from scratch. Put the cat down. So we're going to do this from the shell. So to get to the shell, I'm going to click on Proxmox and then click up here for shell. We'll see that it'll open up. In this case, on the bottom right-hand corner. Now, it'll vary where the particular images are going to come from, but it's pretty straightforward in order to be able to do that. I'm just going to pull up my reference really quick. All right, and we're going to use a couple of commands based on QM. So we've already retrieved the image. We're going to create the entry or the VM ID that we're actually going to apply this image underneath. We can do this as well underneath the GUI, but let's actually do part of it. We're going to do it hybrid, because I have a script that I'm going to show you a little bit later on that's going to automate all of this. So here, let's close this for now. Let's just do create VM up here in the top right. We're just going to use whatever the next ID is, and we'll call it Alpine Linux. Under OS, we're not going to use any media whatsoever. And hit next. See if I can center this a little better. Yeah. And hit next. And then under system, we're going to leave our graphics as default. We're going to choose our machine as Q35. Because this is UEFI, we're going to choose OVMF. We're not going to choose an EFI disk. It will give us a warning when we start up, but it's actually not required. We are going to choose to do the QEMU agent. And we're going to leave the SCSI controller. Actually, we want to change this to regular SCSI. Not for any particular reason. It should work with the other one, but you'll see why when we go over the script. Going through here, we're going to delete this disk. And the reason being is that we're going to create our own disk by importing the image that we just downloaded. For CPU, I'm just going to give it 4 cores. And I'll leave everything else as is. And for memory, we'll give it 8 gigs of RAM. So 8196 without extra zeros. Network, we're just going to use VMBR and leave everything else the same. And pretty much we're ready to go. We're not going to start it after we create it. We need to make a modification first. So now that we've created it, it's going to pop up here. Give it a second to fully populate. And then we're going to import the disk. All right, so now it's fully populated. Let's go back over to Shell. Sorry. Now that it's fully populated, let's go back over to Shell. So we're going to click back over here, click Shell. It's going to pop up. We can go back over here. Now I lost my screen. Where is it? There it is. Okay. And pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to do a QM command. And if we look at QM and we do help, it's ridiculously long. Let's make it half the screen. See if we can zoom in here really quick. But this gives us all of the options associated with it. We're going to do import disk or import image. Which may have even gotten clipped. So let's just Control C to the bottom. We'll do a QM. Import image spelled correctly. You can't see it. There we go. Then help again. And it gives us all of the commands. That is not a valid command. Let's see. Oh, it's just import. I'm sorry. Oops. Do help again. And pretty much what we see is the syntax is the import, the VMID that we want to apply to. In this case, it's 118. The source, which is going to be the actual location of our image that we want to load into it. And then we would put the storage. Where do we want to store this? So which disk are we installing it to? So pretty much it's straightforward. So we'll do QM, import, our VMID is 118. Our source is going to be in the location where we downloaded it. So in the case of the folder that we downloaded it to, inside of that drive, that's pretty much the default. So it's going to be var lib pve local btrfs, and then it will actually be the import directory. And then from there, I know it starts with generic, Alpine, etc. UEFI Cloud-init QCOW2. And then where we want to store it is local btrfs. And I need to do... Oh, wait a second. This is what I get for YOLOing it. I'm going to pull up my reference really quick. It is import disk. Wait. Okay. I'm going to show you this really quick. Ready? QM import disk help. All right, there we go. So it doesn't require the storage. Otherwise, it's the same command. So QM import disk 118 is our actual VM ID. And then we're going to put the path to the actual file and where we want to store it, local btrfs. We'd enter, we see it transfers everything by actually copying it to that particular folder. If we actually go and look at it, so we do, for example, ls/var lib pve local btrfs vz images, and then the actual 118 in this particular case. We see we created that disk. So this right here matches this down here. Now we just got to keep that in mind, because when it attaches it, it's actually not going to automatically give it a mount point or give it a point where it's going to show up within our system. So if I zoom out here and I go up here, yeah, that works. We'll see that it shows up as unused disk 0. We're going to double click into it, and it gives us the option to add it as a SCSI device. Right, so we just hit add, and now when we look at it, it actually shows up as our regular hard disk. But notice something here. It only shows up that the size is 216 megs. That's not going to be enough for whatever we're going to do with it. So going up here to the top, if we click on the disk and we go to disk actions, we can go to resize. And pretty much what this is going to do is it's going to add whatever size we put here to make the image larger in gigabytes. So I'll add 32 gigs to it. Right, so now it's done. We see the size has increased to 32,000 megs, which is about 32 gigs. Perfect. So going back up here, we have a Cloud-init tab. Let's click on that, and it's not going to be able to be accessed. And the reason that that is the case is because we haven't added the Cloud-init drive to it. So let's do that really quick, and then we can do our pre-configuration. So under hardware, we're going to hit add, and we're going to do Cloud-init drive. We can choose whatever we want here. The default is totally fine, but we have to give it a storage path. Same as pretty much with everything. Right, and that can be anything, but in this particular case, I only have the one drive in there. Well, I have two drives, but I'm only using the one drive. So now that that is added, now when we go to Cloud-init, we see that the options are not grayed out anymore. So for user, right now it's set to the default. In this particular case, that's going to be fine for us. That is going to be Alpine, just because it is Alpine. Most of the time it is the distribution, the name of the distribution that you're actually using. We can give it a default password as well. But I got to tell you, this is not best practice, because at the end of the day, it is going to be something where you're not going to be able to necessarily... You're not going to be able to actually see... I realize I can't see chat. But you're not going to be able to... yeah, it's not going to be secure, right? It's always best practice to use SSH keys, things like that, to be able to do it. So, keeping that in mind, see if I can get chat up. There we go. Nobody's watching, but that's quite all right. Well, one person. Thank you, one person. So, we're going to set it, though, because we want to be able to log in I would say, to the UI initially. It is going to prompt us for a username and password when we do try and log in through the console. So we're going to set one here, but again, if you're going to SSH only into this system, you technically don't need it. But we'll give it a very secure password. So we have the password set. We're going to leave DNS, domain, and servers alone. For SSH key, we're going to leave that alone as well, but realistically, we should actually load something in here. And I'll show you with the script, it will do a lot of this automatically. But upgrade packages, we're going to set to yes. So as soon as we log in for the first time, or it should say as soon as it starts for the first time, it will automatically go and upgrade every single package to make sure that it's up to date. And then for our IP configuration, we obviously want to have some kind of network connectivity to be able to do that. So we're going to pre-configure this for DHCP on IPv4, which is what we want. If we needed IPv6, we could do that as well. So now we've pre-configured everything that we need in order to be able to use this. So now, let's actually go ahead and start it up. So I just hit start. I'm going to go over to the console, and let's take a look at it booting. Perfect. What did I set wrong? Pretty much what it's supposed to do. We can actually compare it against one of the ones that I have that exists already. So we have this right here, which is an Alpine Linux, which I use the script to actually install itself. And we do a quick comparison. We see it is exactly the same. The Cloud-init drive we see is IDE 2 is already present. We have the hard disk, which is imported with the same amount of memory, network device, everything else like that that we would expect. Within options, we do see everything is pretty straightforward. Let's make sure. Did I have a boot drive? I did not have a boot drive. Oh my gosh. So yeah, because we added the device separately, we didn't add the boot drive. I'm sorry. You know. So we have to go through there. Let's do that. Now it should run. It would have helped if I made separate notes for this. Right, Kitty? I agree. So it is actually booting now. It's great. So that it doesn't do the full thing going across the screen. And one big difference between the the QCOW2 and the actual, I would say, regular boot process is, is between that and the regular image that you would load, is that it is going to preserve all the changes that you make. It's set up as a full disk installation. And like right now, we do see that it's logged in, or able to be logged in. So what we're going to use is we're going to use the credentials that we set up per Cloud-init. So in this case, it's Alpine, which is the default for this image. And then it's our super secure password. Perfect. So now we're in. So let's try doing ABK upgrade. We see that we have to do as. It's already up to date. So it doesn't have to do anything because it automatically updated as soon as it started. Now, one of the big things that I didn't like about this, and this was the case for all images and the default for actual Proxmox, is that it doesn't give you the option to actually add anything, any custom settings, and specifically the ability to force the user to change the password on first login. And I thought that was important because at the end of the day, you know, it's something that was set that is stored on a drive. You know, it's not something that you can forget or otherwise not have written down anywhere, which would be a little bit more secure. You know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's perfectly secure here. You could delete it after. It is hashed immediately and stored as a hashed value. But again, it's just up to preference. but it is very limited compared to some of the other options that are offered. Although, you know, at the end of the day, that's probably the biggest one I would consider. So that was kind of a hassle. Outside of me forgetting it, and, you know, you could forget it too, especially if you're doing it infrequently, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And there is. And it comes in the form of my script. Now, I've posted this on GitHub to be able to download some of the major distributions. There's 5 of them on there. Let me see if I could pull that up really quick. But looking at GitHub really quick, pretty much what this is going to do is give you the ability to... Oh, that's annoying. Oh, I got an idea. It's just gonna pre-download it and configure it, import it, and create the VM based on the ID that you choose. And you can even change some things on the fly. So, for example, the only thing it really needs to run is which OS you want, and you just put in the name of the OS. So that would be either Ubuntu, Alpine, Arch Linux, Kali Linux, and Kali Linux is actually the desktop version, so it is the full version. They do offer that, and Fedora. So everything except Kali is text-based, but at the end of the day, it's really quick and easy to be able to do it, and depending on things that I need in the future, I may add images as well. But it only needs that image name and then the VM ID that you want it to save to. You also have the option of doing overrides for the drive size, where the default is to add the 32 gigs, just like we did. The network, which the default is VMBR0. The storage, which in this case is set to local BTRFS, but of course, if you have any other name for your storage, you'll need to change that. So to keep the defaults there for the other stuff, you could just put a put in 2 quotes to indicate a blank value, and it will use the default. Then we can set the username explicitly, and then we can also define an SSH key. So in this case, it will actually, if you don't specify an SSH key, it will automatically try and use the one that's in .ssh/authorized keys. So it will try and use the same public key that's registered for your Proxmox server to be able to actually put that into the VM so you can continue to use that same key. But you can also specify a file. If you do specify a file, though, if it's not able to find it or you mistype it or something like that, it's not going to go through the whole process and make you redo it because it didn't load an SSH key. It will actually stop and make sure that it is working if you specify it. So pretty much a usage example. So Cloud-init.sh, Ubuntu, 500 would be the ID, and then plus 32 gigs if we wanted to do that. There's some basic requirements for it, so we do have to put in wget, which actually should exist by default, but HTML, XML utils, which it uses to actually get the current image. It will scrape the current download pages for the respective distributions to be able to make sure that it's getting the latest one. It does P7 zip for some of the images that are compressed by default, and then libguest fs tools. Now, I'll pull this up here just so we can kind of go through it. And this was what I was using as my reference. But this is the actual script itself. And I'll try and keep it in view as I'm talking about things. But we see here at the top is where it's showing the actual default values, everything else like that. It will generate a random user password. So it will not allow you to be able to set a password explicitly, since it's going to just be shown in plain text on the command line and could be captured in logs that way. So in order to avoid that, it will generate a random 12-character password. Going down from there, there's individual functions for each one, so it's pretty easy to make it to be extensible if you wanted to add your own to be able to do this, whether it be custom images that you've created or ones from other sites. But the key thing that it does is it's going to wget the image and download it from the site. And then it's going to do virt customize to make sure it has QEMU, I know it's say it out loud ever, but the QEMU guest agent to be able to make sure that it's reporting properly into Proxmox for IP address and things like that, so you don't have to go searching for it if it doesn't display it on boot. And then it standardizes the name. In this case, I always include the version number with the name that it creates, and you can always change this in the future after you've loaded it in. But I wanted to make sure that it was clear which version you were running, so as it gets added and everything else like that with new versions, that you could differentiate between them. And when it actually downloads it, it's going to download it to that same import folder. And the value with that is that when we actually... Sorry, it's... the browser is annoying. So when we actually have that and look at the local BTRFS, for example, you're not going to be able to see that. There we go. There is a remove button. So if we decide that we don't want one anymore, we can hit remove and actually delete it. And it's showing a confirmation. And we see it disappears from the list and from the storage. So that way you don't have to keep a bunch of old images around, and it just lets you kind of keep everything in a, I would say, a cleaner state. Right, and going back to this, one thing I had to do for Alpine in particular, which is what we're seeing here. So Alpine, it downloads it, but I had to do pretty much a way to force it to change your password. The other distributions will do it normally, where it will prompt you for the password reset as soon as you log in for the first time. Alpine doesn't do that, so it does create a little start script to be able to check for that, and that does indeed work to be able to make it change your password. And it actually does it a little bit easier than some of the other distributions. But that, Arch Linux, Kali, Fedora, and then the Cloud-init config, it does force the change of password by modifying the actual YAML file that makes up the cloud config. So in this particular case, it does export it, and it will save those inside of the snippets folder. Let's see. Yeah, that's going to be easier. So if we look inside of the snippet folder in the same storage that we're actually looking at, or that we're saving all of our other stuff on, we'll see the YAML files will show up here. It does only the user one, but it will pretty much give you a the ID as so you can differentiate between them. It will overwrite it if you do multiple, since you can only have one ID at a time anyway. But it really only needs it the first time it boots, and then it never runs again. So, continuing down through this, pretty much here is where it's actually doing all of that work. So it's going to go through here, it's going to read your storage config in order to get the path for the actual place to put the image itself. It'll create whatever directories it needs, do whatever it needs to do, and then it gets down here to where it actually does the creation itself. So here it will create the image, add by default 4 cores and 8 gigs of memory. It will pretty much initialize some of the major things, and then it will import the disk. And actually, it will automatically assign it as SCSI 0. From there, it will resize it by whatever you request. It will mount the Cloud-init image. It will set the boot order, so it's SCSI 0 as the first boot device. It will enable the guest agent, set the BIOS to whatever it needs to be, either UEFI or standard BIOS. For one of the images in particular, Fedora, it did require actually including a serial socket. Otherwise, it just threw massive segfault errors on boot. So it does that by default as well. And then it sets the IP config to be DHCP. Sets the username, sets the password that was generated, and then sets it to upgrade. Going on from there, it sets the SSH key and includes that, and then gives you a nice little display. So it tells you that it's ready to go. So let's go ahead and run this. So we'll do //cloud-init. I'm not sure if I could zoom on this. Can I? Oh, I can. Oh, let's do that instead. How nice is everything? Oh, I can read that. Okay, so we'll do Cloud-init. Right, and if we just hit enter, we see it gives us that help file that we saw earlier. And we just need to do OS and VMID. So in this particular case, let's do Alpine, and we'll do the same exact thing that we did before. And we'll make it VMID 700. And we'll leave everything else default. So we'll hit enter, it will download it because we deleted the image earlier. It's going to go through, it's going to make all of the necessary configurations, make sure guest agent is installed, and then it's going to copy it over to the drive that we specified. Which in this case, it's using the default, which is local BTRFS. It's going through, it's making the necessary configuration, adding our SSH key, and it's done. Right, and we see that it gave us this random password here. So now if we actually go back over to our Proxmox instance, and I could zoom here as well, although it's going to get really, really crowded. Right, so 700 right here. That's the one that was just created. And we see everything's already preset for us. So we can go over here to console, and we're just going to start it now. We don't have to do anything else. Everything else was done by default. Right, so now we see it's loading up properly. We don't have to do anything special in order to be able to do that. And then the key thing is we actually just have to make sure that we can copy down this key or the password or something like that so we could type it in. I'm just going to move it to a different screen so that way I can see it at the same time. So in this case, we're going to log in again. That's not going to work. Let's do, yeah, that kind of works. So we'll do Alpine as the username. Password is going to be the long string that we have in here. All right, and now it says that we need to create a new password. Oof, sorry. We need to make a new password. So we're just going to enter a new one. And we're done. Right, so already set up. So we could do APK update. Do as APK update. Do as is what's used in Alpine. Everything else is used as sudo. Do as is like sudo, but it's do as. They just chose to prefer it. All right, and scrolling down through here. See it updated successfully. So let's try APK add fast fetch. Right, successfully installed it. And there we go. So we see it's currently running. We see what version it is, 3.21. It's on x86-64. It recognizes it's running on virtualization, so KVM QEMU. And then kernel, uptime, packages, SH. you know, all of the stats associated with it, including the color palette for the particular terminal. And now the nice thing is we can actually go in. We can open up Proxmox. I have my key already loaded, although you can access it by going to SSH, auth, and then credentials and loading it here. Oh, you couldn't see that. Sorry, moved it too high. Well, you could kind of see it. SSH, auth, credentials, and be able to load it. So I've already preloaded that. So we'll do Alpine, @ and then the IP address for it. How do we know what the IP address is? So if we go up here to summary, because we have the QEMU agent installed, we can actually see it right here. So it's 40.186. Did I type it correctly? I don't think I typed it correctly. Let me try that again. There we go. Now I typed it correctly. Right, so it prompts me if I want to actually connect, because it doesn't recognize the key, and then it connects. Right, so it's just here, so we could do fast fetch, which we installed a second ago, and there it is. We can even extend it out. It's exciting times. So pretty much from there, it's a general installation. We can reboot it from here, and it will preserve all of the settings that we do in real time. We don't have to use LBU to be able to do it. So we can do that for all of the other ones, and I'll just kind of take you around them. But we already did Alpine Linux, but we have Ubuntu, right? And here we could see that Ubuntu is kind of the same thing, but we see it's running. Then we can go over here and we can choose Arch Linux. And again, Arch Linux, same deal. It's doing its thing. I'm going to go to Fedora first, just because it's command line. And we see Fedora is doing the same thing. Some of these I'm using fast fetch, some of these I'm using NeoFetch. It's just a great way to get a system stat. But NeoFetch is less available than fast fetch. And then here we're going to go to Kali. And this one I'll zoom out. Right, so when I go over here, pretty much it's a regular desktop OS. So when I log into it, we can also see that it has its regular logo and everything else like that. But if I actually close out of this terminal, it's a full desktop. So we can go over, we can see all of the particular, whoops. We can go and see all of the, I'm going to find one that actually shows it. 1 minute. There we go. Yeah. So we can see all of the apps that are pre-installed as part of this. It's actually a giant image as a result. But it is something where I think it's well worth it. They do have also a QCal version of the text-only version, but you know, I think having access to a nice GUI that is very polished and definitely something that's made for developers. I know it's technically made for hackers, but it is very polished OS, and it has a lot of very useful tools for being able to validate that your systems are secure, etc. So that's pretty much it. So be sure to check this out. I mean, it's put quite a bit of work into it, and I'll probably put in quite a bit more in terms of I do want to see if this is something that I can kind of integrate into the general Proxmox UI to be able to make it like, instead of having this be regular, just like this shutdown button has a drop down associated with it, make it so there's a drop down there so you could do a quick create for some certain VM distributions, but make it as an add-in. So just a script that runs kind of like the nag pop-up stopper thing that is released and generally used for people who don't have the registered version of Proxmox. So it's that level of fun. So yeah. Thanks for watching the stream today. If you like it, be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment down below. And if you know anybody who would like this kind of content, be sure to share it with them. I would appreciate it, and I hope they would appreciate it too. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Helps me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm, and then hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we're getting extended. So until then, take care.